Hi, everyone, and welcome to tonight's show. Please send your prayers for a stable internet connection. I was telling Phil, this is my gorgeous friend, Phil Rice, who is back for round number 2 with you all because you loved him so much. And we just wanted to share another conversation with you guys because, yeah, we're just looking to expand on what we talked about in the first part. Because telling Phil I was up to like 1:30 in the morning trying to configure new internet because no one can give me an answer on what is happening. But yeah, thank you everyone for your love and support. Phil and I really appreciate it. How are you doing today, Phil?
Well, I'm so much better for being here with you and your wonderful audience. I'm so grateful. Thanks for having me back. Um, and yeah, I'm really excited to catch up again today. And yeah, my goodness, isn't it a funny time for tech and things that should just work that just don't seem to? But that's just how it is, right?
Yeah, that's the thing. You've got to be able to swim in the deep end, when you don't have the life raft and just keep paddling, just keep moving. So we can see a lot of soul family here, and happy Thanksgiving to those that are in the States as well. Before we
Yes.
get too into it, because I know Phil and I are super excited about this conversation and talking a little bit backstage about where we want this conversation to go, just have to remind you guys that we have a lot on Maison Jupiter. So Julie's released her new astrology workshop. We've got the candles back, Elena's gorgeous necklaces. We still have Sophie and myself that have sessions available. So you can use the discount code Jupiter to book 10%. Things do tend to get a little bit busier before Christmas. So if you do want a session, I would suggest to grab them now as we're heading into December. And the other thing I need to remind you guys is please hit that thumbs up and subscribe. It's good to hit that little notification bell too so that you never miss a show. And I want to share with you as well, if you haven't already subscribed to Phil's Substack, I highly recommend it. As we've seen with many other major platforms and things being taken down, this is one of those that will survive all of that. So please head on over and subscribe. He has a wealth of information, as well as some interesting characters that you have on interview chatting about hermetics and esoteric and occult knowledge and kung fu and tai chi and all of the amazing subjects you guys cover as well. And he also has bookings available. So for Reiki, for meditation, to really expand on your healing insight and growth. Is there anything that you want to mention that I may have missed out? I know we read your bio in the first one and we were talking more about having a bit of a chat, but please jump on in.
Thank you so much for sharing this. Yes, everyone. So Substack is like I have a pretty active YouTube channel as well, but I haven't included that. You can find that on the Substack. Up the top there, you'll see underneath it's got YouTube there. Yep. And so you can go on there, and I've got heaps of videos on there. But yeah, the Substack is a really great place because I also have blogs on there. So I cover a lot of different material, and a lot of what I do focuses around energetics, energy healing, motion-based sort of development, including body training, things like developing the facial network. We'll talk about Hermetics and Kabbalah, but not Kabbalah as you know it, and maybe not Hermetics as you know it. It's really fun. I get to talk to some pretty amazing people, and I've done a stack of interviews this year, and so I've managed to connect with some of the coolest, most knowledgeable people that I've come across in the last couple of years, and it's been a real hoot. But I have to say, I'm a bit all interviewed out, so I'm just sort of doing live stream hangouts with Phil at the moment. So I kind of do random live streams. But yes, I've also got the booking app there as well, philrice.setmore.com, and you can connect with me for various services there. And so thank you for that, because I don't know whether it was Mercury retrograde or what, but the internet, I mean, my website and my email getting hacked, and that just wizened me up to setting up some other types of robust infrastructure for because wow, things can just disappear like that, just like that,
Yeah.
just like that.
That's interesting that you say that because I just heard from, I think it was an astrologer this morning. Actually, it was Vedic one, Joni Portray. And she was saying that Mercury retrograde is the time that you find things that you thought that you've lost. So the universe will kind of maybe spit them back out. It's almost like a reverse dryer or a reverse plug hole. The black hole's just spitting things back out. So maybe it's a good time to put out for finding those lost objects or revisiting certain things. But yeah, interesting how, and I wonder, I'm like, is it just the sensitive ones of us that experience the tech glitches? But I don't think so, because I know two people the other day whose cars broke down. The electrics have gone on my car at the moment to do with lighting, but it's not an unusual thing for me to have problems with electrical.
My gosh, there's in the weird, wild, wonderful world that we live in, little gremlins can poke their noses and put their fingers in things, and that's just the way it is. And I think what happens though is that, like anything, we get presented with new challenges. We might be getting a bit comfy in our little bubble, and life wants to go, all right, let's nudge this guy and give him some new weights to lift. And here's a situation. And it's always funny when it's urgent things, like you're just about to do something, and then and I tell you what, you have your nimbleness and your agility and your ability to adapt to a situation tested, and that can give you good feedback for I don't know, being prepared for the future and things like that. So it's good having the systems tested, finding out where weak links are, these types of things. So yeah, I mean, it may seem pretty unpleasant, unhelpful, or even a bit stink, but if you can find the value in it, or if you're looking to find the value in it, you may harvest some use from it.
That's such good advice. And it's really funny. I bought my modem 2 months ago, and I'm like, this is the last thing, I've tried it. They say it's fine, but I'm like, you know what? I'll take it back. I took it back, got a brand new one. They're like, oh, this is on sale for $100 less. You get $100 cash back. And I'm like, there's that silver lining, even though I would much prefer to have not spent 2 days trying to fix the situation. But, you've got to look at that silver lining, and just, it's kind of comical sometimes the way things work, or the way that it's like, you know what, you need to actually unplug from tech, get out of your head, go and meditate. I found that was probably the bigger message. And we had an owl just out here yesterday in the middle of the day in the tree, moving around, preening himself. And then last night we were locking the chickens up, and my partner's like, look right above your head. There was 2 tawny frogmouth owls sitting together, which are they're the shy ones. But I felt owl messages since coming back from Dr. Joe's event. I just keep feeling owl spirit with me. So I'm definitely being forced to pay more inward attention, and it's telling me to take it off the external, I think.
That's so interesting, because a family member, I live in a beautiful house with some bush down the back, and they were just pointing out to me, did you hear the owl last night? We have an owl here in New Zealand called a moorpork, and it's very noticeable. I didn't notice it, but yeah. And so you're just bringing it up now. So yeah, must be the owls are looking for some to give people nudges, perhaps. The fact that we're bringing it up, so isn't that curious? So
oh my gosh, and your whole aura just started to change when you were talking about that. You literally have this vibrancy and electricity. I hope you don't mind me sharing. You have this different color energy that I haven't really seen before. So, every now and then I'll see a new color, or I'll see a new wavelength, or a new kind of vibrancy or type of color. So I don't even have human words to describe it, but your aura is sitting like out here, but it almost looks, it's like a different vibration compared to the energy that I normally see. Those cymatic plates where you see the sound hit, and then the sand or the iron shavings, or, salt or whatever it is, will dance and vibrate. It's almost like someone's come along, and your aura being a salt plate, instead of it just being like on a gentle vibration, it's like someone's turned it up like full strength, and it's just vibrating like this. So sometimes I'll see energy looks like a mist. Other times it'll look like little crystals being activated, or glitter. Yours, I can only describe as a type energy, like a UFO. And it's got a maroon type color to it with gold. Does that make sense to you?
Yeah, well, I mean, yeah, there's so much we can talk about here. So I've got a cool little story I'll share just quickly, and that is, check this out. So I'm sitting at a table with my friend, and he's not a practicer. He's an open-minded dude. He's a very practical, down-to-earth guy. He gets on the table and he does Tai Chi with me, and he's great. He's an old friend from school. And I remember a few years back, we're sitting at the breakfast bar upstairs, and I'm sitting on the end, and I'm talking about tarot Tarot is a great favorite subject of mine, and he's looking at me, and then he kind of nervously takes a sip on his tea and puts it down, and I look at him, I go, bro, you're good. And he goes, what does it mean when there's a blue line around your body? And I'm like going, that's interesting. I didn't know you could see. He goes, I've never seen that before. I ain't even seen anything like it before. And so I was either like, because, when you get excited, and I'm sure you've seen this when you talk to clients, right? I'm not like, my clairvoyance sort of usually comes out when I've got clients on the table, or if I'm working at hardcore, if I'm practicing it hard. But, this essentially, he either had a clairvoyant moment, or I've been doing so much Qigong that I punched through into the physical, and it was kind of like, like it met him halfway. And it was so bizarre because he's just like, he looked real nervous. He was like, what does it mean when you got a blue line around you? And I'm like, bro, that sounds like first stage clairvoyance. You're seeing the vital level. That's pretty cool, man.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, but I mean, as far as the colors go, since I've been studying this Kabbalah, this Franz Barden system of Kabbalah, which is sort of like this book here. So you see all these different colors on here, right? And there's a symbol there. There's a thing, right? So basically, this book here is a third book in a series, right? And it's got 27 of these letters, right? Germanic letters, and each letter is essentially got a color, a sound, and a sensation associated with it. So you learn how to train the three aspects of yourself. So this is almost like true multitasking, or you could call it true multitasking, where you've got three different parts of yourself doing three things at once. You're synchronizing the dantians, if you will, or you're fusing the energetic centers, the three main centers. And what I found is that some people who get on the table they have these really visual experiences, and they report seeing these colors. And I'm like, okay, and I just take notes. And over time, I kind of found that there were some usual suspects with the colors, and some colors were more obvious than not. And I have to say, since I've been, because I've often wondered, what are the colors related to? Because some of them don't, a lot of associations will generally be done with a chakra system or the rainbow, the Roy G. Biv. But people are seeing colors that fall outside of that spectrum. And obviously, there's more colors. Like we see there's colors that, there's flowers have colors that we don't see in the rainbow spectrum, like pink. That's not really what we'd call like a rainbow color, if you will, from the spectrum. It's a mix. And so I started taking notes, because each one of these letters, these 27 letters from Franz Barden's Key to the True Kabbalah, has a color associated with it. So I started recording that. And what was interesting is that when people would give me the feedback, and continue to give me the feedback, I relate it back to the letter, and it gives me like a reference of insight. And because the letters have a relationship to the various realms of reality. And sorry, I'm sort of wandering into some theory here, but I guess what I'm saying is that when we practice this Kabbalah, or this letter magic, if you will, we essentially at one level, at the mental level, we're cloaking ourselves in this color. And people who have clairvoyance can pick up on it. Like I'm training a particular letter at the moment, and each letter maybe about 100 hours of practice. Wow. But that's what it takes to hit the it's about 10 hours to get a reasonably clean connection with it, and then about 20 hours and you've got a pretty solid connection, and then 100 hours you've got it pretty well baked in, and then then you spend a lot of time with it, and then it's like Obelix and Asterix. You know how Obelix fell in the cauldron as a baby? For those of you who don't know Asterix and Obelix, it's an old cartoon.
Oh, I can just picture the guy now, the big barrel belly and the pants, and
he carries that big monolith on his back, right? And so, but anyway, what happens is that you you develop a relationship between the colors of the letters and what they refer to. And so, I'm just interested to see what people are commenting on, because I have no doubt there's some very clairvoyant people in there. And I have to say,
there's one here, sorry to interrupt, Jake, who's actually taking my aura course at the moment, and we were talking live yesterday with the second Q&A for the course, and it's amazing. People are seeing plasma, they're seeing auras, they're seeing colors. And some people are seeing not only with the peripheral auric vision, but they're having third eye activation happen too. But I'm also sensing with this, so he's seeing the greenish color with the yellow. So I was seeing that beautiful gold with a maroon type color. Sometimes you'll have where one person will see one part of a complementary color. So if you look at a greenish color, sometimes the maroon sort of color will be complementary to this. For me, maroon is kind of like more mature version of root chakra energy. So it's like you can sort of yeah, there's different feelings and vibration. I won't get into the full depth of it on air because some of it might be private, but I'll chat with you like off air about it. But there's a gorgeous kind of I'm trying to think of, it's like a royal purple as well that sometimes you'll get, that I've seen flash up every now and then with you too.
Wonderful. Yeah, I mean, like all of those colors, like, so gold would be the letter R, which is Resh, which is usually related to the Sun card and the Tarot, because each one of these 27 letters lines up against pretty well against the Hebrew letters as well. But this is it's a big wide topic, but essentially, like so gold was a good pick. Maroon would be related more to the letter S, which is a fire element letter, and then green would be either F or G, and then purple. There's a few letters, but one of the main letters. So when you do the 4-element training in Hermetics, you're basically balancing these 4 elements within each layer. So at the astral or the felt level, the sensation level, you're basically training the sensation of heat, sensation of cool, the sensation of lightness, and the sensation of heaviness. And we use Tai Chi and Qigong to help do that, because we bring in the body mechanics to basically really absorb ourselves into this. Now, once we've got those 4 elements balanced in our personality, so you've got emotions and you've got feelings, you've got things like heat, and then you've got, anger, for example, and there's a relationship. And we kind of learn how to balance these 4 elements in our mental body or spirit, our astral body or our soul, and our physical or vital body. And what happens is that once we balance these elements, it gives us access to the 5th element, which is the Akasha or the ether or the void. And you'll hear people like Tom Campbell, the ex-Monroe Institute chap, or maybe still with him, but he'll talk about the void or the still point. And that's one of the first goals in Hermetics. One of the first big milestones is to get access to this Akasha or this dark purple energy or this dark violet. And so that energy is basically the clairvoyant. It's actually colorless, but clairvoyantly it looks dark violet. And then you've got other iterations. Some of the other letters have got Akasha has its own sort of feeling to it. But the other letters, like there's a violet water letter, there's a fire violet letter, and then there's a what's the other one? There's an earth violet letter. And so what you have is that you have some that have similar colors, but they'll have a different tone or a different pitch, and they'll have a different feeling sensation to go with them. But sometimes they have these overlapping kinds of qualities. But it's really fun to play with, because that, like I said, that gold that you picked was spot on. Because that's one of the colors that I'm working on at the moment. So that's a good spot.
Well, you're holding it. And as I was describing with the difference with the energy and the voltage or the wattage of how it's turned up, you can see that you're doing something different. And yeah, I'm just so proud of you as a friend to see, the shift and change, because I've known you for years. And yeah, I can definitely see something's like cranked the volume up. What's fascinating is with the Dr. Joe Dispenza retreat. So he talks about getting into the void and things. I didn't realize till I was sitting there that when I was about 4 or 5 years old, I have this super clear memory laying in my parents' bed. They're up doing things. I'm just sort of chilling, looking at the sunlight coming in, where you see it filter and there's like dust filaments and that. And then before I knew it, I slipped into void space. And I can only describe it as like a real deep kind of velvet curtain feeling that I was collapsing into.
Right.
The only word I could sort of describe, as an adult, because as a 4-year-old or 5-year-old, you don't have the words to describe that. But it felt like I was being held in that thick, velvety void space. And there was this recurrent kind of like undulating energy taking me deeper and deeper into that. And I felt like I was going to just dissipate into nothing. And now I realize 40 years later, I'm just circling back to the spot that I started at 4 or 5 years old. So I think you've just joined the dots even further for me, that this is something to do with the natural clairvoyance and why I've always had this switched on. Perhaps I always had access to this void space.
Yeah, well, so when we train clairvoyance and hermetics, right? So there's different layers, there's different strata of the energy, right? So we've got this. So everyone knows this exercise where you do the build the ball exercise, and you can feel the energy, right? So the first thing we feel is the electromagnetic quality, which is just the basically the what you might call the magnetic fluidic nature of the stuff, right? That would be the vital level, and then we learn how to slow it down. And as we slow it down and release time, then we're moving into this astral quality where it's almost like hydraulic. And that's when you see the Tai Chi people just moving like they're in a slower time slip, and this is, this astral level, if you will. So we've got this basic vibrational scale. We've got the vital level down here in our lower dantian, if we will, and then we've got this astral body or middle dantian, and we've got the upper body, the shen or the spirit, which is the upper dantian, which is released of space. So what we do is, to climb this ladder, first of all, we tap into the basic feeling, which is governed by time and space. Then we release time, and then we release space, and then that is another whole sensation to practice as well. So we have these sensations we practice. Now, how is this useful and how is this relevant? Because I want to hear some more about Mr. Dispenza. But what happens is that we can actually feel our way between these very distinct areas and realms of operation, because when we're in this one, when we can cleanly occupy that without sort of having overlap with other things, like we've got our feeling and if we're getting noise or sensory data coming from our physical and our astral body, that's going to capture levels of our parts of our awareness. So we want to basically turn off these two bodies. I mean, like our friend Greg Doyle, something we'll hear Greg talk about is the importance of sort of like getting really, really relaxed. If you want to go out of body, you basically want to turn the noise or turn the body off. You want to turn any noise or sound that comes from the physical body or the physiology. We want to turn that off. And then we learn how to calm the emotional body and then the mental body. And then that allows us to sort of like go, okay, I know how to release myself from this. So anyway, so I'm wandering around here, but
I love it. It's fascinating. And I think the reason that we're going down this, because you and I are really good at just following the intuition and letting things unspiral, unravel, which is really, I just love that about our conversations. And one thing we were talking about was coming into this show, I just felt to reach out. So Spirit's like, you've got to talk to Phil. You've got to bring Phil back on. And then I'm like, what do we chat about, Phil? Because there's so many topics that we both love that are, interconnected, or we have like, a half of part of the puzzle. And then as soon as I reached out to you, Spirit started giving me more to do with geometries and things. And I just want to bring up a little picture that I have over here. So I just wanted to, just so you guys know what we're talking about, it was on the Rare Earth Gallery website. You can see here, we've got the egg of life, the fruit of life, Metatron's cube, Vesica Pisces, seed of life, the germ of life. I won't go on, but you can see Kabbalah, flower of life, Merkabah, all of the above here. But one thing that, I was aware of when doing the Dr. Joe retreat was these interdimensional beings walking throughout the room and activating and light touching on people's hearts. But, because of having experiences with interdimensionals and ETs in that since I was a kid, sometimes they will float geometries in your room, or you'll get a geometry projected into your room. One of them that I've always had was the Sri Yantra. And so, to see this vibrating in kind of the ether or etheric energy, just in a room where you're like looking and it's kind of superimposed over reality. I do feel that some of these geometries are maybe perhaps some of these interdimensionals trying to communicate, perhaps trying to activate us, or perhaps even trying to maybe even heal or get us to fuse into like a higher dimensional reality or a template. I feel like this is a bardo kind of how would I say, like a intermediate language because geometry is language. And that's how I passed my geometry test, by the way. I just psychically went into the geometry, asked what it is about, what it's connected to, and I got like 98% back in college. So geometry definitely can speak. What's your take on this?
Okay, so there's a lot that can be going into with this type of thing, because if you look at if we look at the idea of shape power, so we look at the pyramids in Egypt, right, and it's largely speculated that from at a subtle level, so everything has an expression on each one of the planes of reality. So everything has a mental expression, of an astral or a form-based expression, and then we have the physical expression. So what there is in the astral worlds, for example, it's not. It can be solid, but it's not solid. It's not. It's where it's just before form comes into materializes into reality. But what happens is that at the subtle level, at the chi level or the astral level, shapes are almost like they're organizing principles for energy that like what is it they call the pyramid means fire in the middle, right? And so I've seen depictions of energy as it swirls and reaches up to the top of the pinnacle. And so if you think about like a church, right, that's got a steeple, and it's usually down the far end, right? So all the people in the pews are all praying and worshiping, and then the minister is essentially a type of hierophant, and that's getting directed up into this antenna or this transmitter in a sense, and that's going into the collective, egregore, whether it's Christianity or whatever. So, but shapes and symbols, right? So if you look at a Sri Yantra, you've basically got those 7 chakras represented in there. And you've got the outside, which would be the root chakra. Then you've got the sacral chakra is the next one. Then you've got that first layer of the petals, which would be your hang on, what is it? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So the heart, I do believe, is the first round of triangles, but you've got these almost like concentric circles moving into the crown at the very middle. But if you spend time looking at that symbol, you'll see there's a dot in the very middle of that middle triangle. If you sit there with one of these, so apparently you want to put this on the eastern side of your house on a north-facing wall, and this is what I heard and what I've done. But you spend time and you observe. Now it's having an environmental effect, because, like I said, it's like a tuning fork with a set of shapes, and the shapes how to organize energy, right? And so in Hermetics, we also practice this idea of creating like soap bubbles and shapes around ourselves, then filling it with energy. And then, like, for example, if you use your mental body to project a pyramid around you, it's going, and then you pack it full of vital energy, and then you move it around, or you just let it naturally start to move, just like Brownian motion, when you've got a glass of water and you put some dye in it, and the water just starts to maybe follow the Coriolis forces of the earth. The energy starts to take on a personality when you give it a box or a shape to put it in. And so when you encase yourself, and, like I said, the mental projection is the shape, and then that becomes a form into the astral, then the energy can start, it's like it goes, oh, okay, and then it'll start to conform or move to the contours or the shape. And so you could have a sphere, you could have a cube, and this is going to affect it differently. So sorry, go for it. Yep.
Oh, no, so when we look into, sacred geometry and things, if we look into icosahedron, and I think that one's related to the element of air. I'm just getting my octane. No, it's an icosahedron. So it's almost like a 3D kind of diamond type shape.
Yep.
That one, apparently you're supposed to put like your intention or your visualization and manifestation into, and that shape's meant to bring it more into our 3D a lot faster. So I was just thinking about like, creating these astral shapes and things, and just, some of the information that I've read to do with that, it makes sense. And if we're talking about, about 98 something percent of this, whatever this is that I'm touching right here, it's not air, plasma. If we're using that to kind of shape things, and we think about plasma also being in water and in the sacred waters within. It's a really interesting spiritual substance that we see more anchored, I guess, within water, within the physical reality. And water always shapes to, whatever container you're putting it into.
Great analogy. Yeah. So, when we're manifesting or bringing things into form, we're beginning this journey from force down into form, right? And so, if we have a container or some parameters to put this idea into, then it starts. You're making it possible for it to actually become, because you're assisting it. And so, shapes, some shapes are conducive to, I guess, what you could, condensing forms in that, because, you're trying to condense subtle things into heavy, hard things. And some geometries are going to sort of, they're going to move things in a different direction. They're going to rotate differently. They're going to have a different effect on the behavioral characteristics of the whichever type of substance you're working with, whether it's sort of, like I use mostly Hermetic terminology when I talk about this, and I find it crosses over quite nicely to some of the Taoist stuff as well, is that, and other forms as well, is that there's these different layers. It's like there's a big long map, and there's these milestones, like these big landmarks, and you've got vital, astral, mental, and then, there's a couple more as well. But there's also strata and degrees of intensity, or there's many layers within the astral, so to speak. But as it comes down, by putting it in, by exploring how energy affects forms, and I think I've seen this with like if you've got an incense stick, right? I can't remember what it was. There was someone let an incense stick burn inside a pyramid or something like that, and there was a hint of sort of a spiral there. And some things can be coaxed to reveal their subtle nature. And, that's why I can't remember the name of the guy. It was a David Wilcock thing I watched years ago. And he's basically got this, he gets a spider's web, right? Because it's so subtle, that's so strong. And then you char a matchstick, and, because then it's really light, but it's still got a little bit of weight to it. Because if it's too heavy and too thick, the subtle forces can't always maneuver it as well, because it's fighting against physics in a sense, if you will. And so there's ways of kind of meeting these things halfway, so you can go,
Oh, and that leads me down another rabbit hole, which is why I called this one Down the Rabbit Hole with Us, because I knew we were going to go down, a few different ones. But the movie The Last Mimsy, they actually have the boy that does certain sounds, and then the spiders build like little bridges and things, and there's portals and interdimensional things that open up. Might be time for a movie night again, I think. But yeah, everything you're saying makes sense. It's cool. And do you feel like with the interdimensional side of things, actually, there's a little video that will lead us into this. Let me just stop the screen share and bring this up, because I think the audience will love this. And I don't know if you've seen this one, Phil. This is, it's a good one. This is the Terence McKenna one. So let me just play this. Hopefully the sound is all good.
They are, as I've said many times, they are like jeweled, self-dribbling basketballs. And there are many of them. And they come out of the background and they present themselves to you. They're literally vibrating up and down with excitement. They're faceted and rotating. And they see you as clearly as you see them. It's extremely... I don't know, it's upsetting. You can't believe it's happening. There's a lot of cognitive dissonance. You could believe this if it just weren't happening to you. They have a message. And the message is, you can do what we are doing. And what they're doing is using their voices to make physical objects condense out of the air. And they're saying, you can do this. Do it. Do it. Do it. Entities is the only word to describe them. And they...
I sent that to myself a little while ago, and something told me put this, and then I didn't even realize, I forgot I still had it up there, and it linked back into what we're talking about. What's your take on what Terence was saying about interdimensionals?
So there's another. Terence McKenna was. And I'm going to paraphrase here because I can't exactly remember the quote, but he said something along the lines, which is echoed in so many traditions, which was the world was spoken into existence. So God said, "Let there be light." Well, before he said something. There was something said, and this is a myth that we see repeated. I mean, it's funny. I used to do what we call kapahaka at the local schools, where I basically would play guitar, and my friend, she's a lovely Māori lady, and she would lead the singing in Indigenous Māori songs and things like this. And she was telling me about their creation myth, which started with the speaking. So if you think about like those cymatic patterns, and about how sound organizes the gross materials into organized, sort of intelligently organized structural inferences. Remember, when we're looking at cymatics, we're looking at a two-dimensional crosscut, or like a slice, basically, of a three-dimensional image. And I saw, I've got a mate, everyone knows, Dr. Rick Miller, Dr. Richard Allen Miller. I was having a chat with him one day, and he used to train dolphins and things back in the 70s and that. And, we're talking about how animals communicate and that. And something else came up straight after I talked to Rick, and that was an image of basically how dolphins talk to each other. When they speak, it's like there's a big cymatic bubble. That's that expanded two-dimensional slice that we see on the cymatic plates. And if you slice it up, you see these geometries inside, right? Now, so here's the thing. So I was talking about this book here, Key to the True Kabbalah by Franz Baden. Check this out. So each one of the bodies has a function, okay? We have a mental body, which is spaceless. We have an astral body, which is timeless. And we have a physical body, which is bound by time and space. But one thing... we train this one to visualize a color. So there's an energy out in the world, right? And these are the creative energies, right? And so when these spirits are talking about you can create, you just need to know how to basically link these 3 points up. So you visualize a color, you feel a sensation. So you're giving each one of the bodies a job to do. And then at the vital level or the physical level, there's body mechanics and gestures and stretching the fascia open and forming these shapes and tuning your elastic web to like there's sails like that pick up the breeze, the astral breezes, if you will. That's why once you get that feeling, oh, there it is, you can train that so your whole body is floating, right? But now we bring in a sound. So we have the fire pole, the air pole, the water pole, and the earth pole. The fire pole is your mental body being able to create a color. Your water pole is your feeling pillar or your astral body, and then which incorporates that. And then your air pole, which is the one. This is where we're bringing the word down. So if we think about a letter and we visualize it at a mental level, we hear this inner voice. We hear this. Okay, we talk about the letter A, which is a light blue, which is the air element. Okay. And then what we do is we mimic them. We have the ability with our body, with our intrinsic ability to mimic through sympathetic resonance. So each one of these energies has a sound, a sensation, and a color. So where I'm going with this is that these things can be creation can be brought into existence through the sound. And what we do is that these energies can be yoked through the 3-part concentration. So you know how you can, if you try and pick up a basketball with one hand, right? Unless you're like one of them big ass basketball players, it's going to be a bit of a trick. You need 2 hands, right? Yeah. Well, each one of these energies needs 3 hands, and each hand grasps it differently. So there's an energy out there. It's a creative energy, like an element, like a letter, and we yoke it by the sound, the sensation, and the color. And the sound is what pulls it down into the physical. It's the common denominator we pull it first into the fire pole, into the mental body, then to the water, and then into the earth pole, and we can pull it through using the sound. And so, and if you think about it, right, there are people who can make things move with their mind, right? And so they are able to change things, you know, and they can utter a sound with their mind, a vibration, a perturbation into the ether, and the ripples go out and it forms a geometry, you know, and then you can feel, oh, this is a huge topic, right? But you know, what McKenna's saying essentially, because he's obviously probably talking more from the psychedelic route, where you know, you can sort of form a crack in the veil and you know, have a few you know, it's a bit of a you know, you buy that ticket, you take that ride, and you know, what do they say? There's lots of shortcuts to grandma's house, but you got to watch out for them big bad wolves.
Yeah.
You know, sort of thing. So you know, it's a yeah, that it's a merry-go-round when you use substances, and you got to take the whole ride, I guess. But as far as like putting that aside and going, how can you do it vanilla, al natural? Yes, there is a process. Yes, there is in my view, the creator wants its creations, being us, to honor and carry on the process of creating, whether it's children or whether it's putting art and new things into the world. And you know, I kind of think that there's different sand pits that we get to play in. Once you get a bit of maturity and you learn how to manage yourself and refine yourself better, then you're allowed to play with bigger toys.
That is a good analogy. And that leads into what Jake is asking as well. And Jake, I just want to say thank you. I did see your comments. Where was it? So Jake has been doing the Aura course, and he had an amazing experience yesterday. So I just want to read this out. So he encountered a light energy being with long ET type heads, big eyes during the meditation that we did in the live Aura course. And yeah, he said they were shimmering pearlescent, felt like a higher dimensional selves. And also very, very loving too. But let me just jump back to Jake's question. And can we do this like from the intuition, or do we need to tap into these poles that you were talking about and the fundamental sounds that also go with it?
Okay, so what we do is that we train the bodies. And so, you know, we're using our intellect. So here's our intellect and here's our intuition. And they're on either sides of a river. And this is just a loose analogy, right? And so as Hermeticists, right, we're scientists. So we're seeking an intellectual understanding of the pathway we're setting ourselves forward. So here we are with our intellect going, right, okay, so I've been told I need to train my mental body. There's exercises for the mental body, there's exercises for the astral body, and there's exercises for the physical vital body. And so we train these things to harmonize themselves individually, and then we can teach them how to work with each other. So we use this intellectual process to go, oh, okay, that makes sense. You know, I do concentration, awareness, vacancy of mind exercises. I do element training. These are types of concentration exercises. And then there's physical exercises as well. And less so much physical, but body conditioning is very helpful. Now, as far as what happens is that once we start getting over this, getting some momentum and climbing over, you think of a bridge, like an arched bridge, right? On one side, we've got intellect, one side, we've got intuition. We start off with our intellect, and we use these very graspable, relatable processes to start training the bodies, to start taking ownership of these capabilities. So we're not just getting glimpses and spontaneous experiences. We're actively training existing sense perceptions to pick up a bigger field of data. And so the size, you'll be able to pick up a greater radius, and also what is currently in that sphere of awareness. New resolutions. You'll go from 480p to 720 to 1080 to 4K. The more you're able to dial in, there'll be new things that emerge that in a familiar space, if you will. Now, what happens is, like I said, we start using this intellectual process and do this special training, and it gives us a momentum. And then what happens is we sort of just like stop thinking, because then as we develop these capacities via this, what you might call intellectually satisfying method, like I said, it's a very scientific approach in Hermetics. What happens is that we crack open the ability for intuitive data to start flowing through. So what we're doing is we're taking very tight pipes and we're using mechanical processes to open them up so that we get more throughput of intuitive data. Now, this data still needs to be vetted because, you know, you could be having your ego personality bubbling information up that's actually not that useful.
Yeah.
It's just commenting, blah, 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 you know, and you might be picking up local chatter, you know, like the collective, you know, like everyone in the neighborhood's watching The Simpsons and there's some joke and everyone's laughing at the same joke, and you might hear this joke going on in the background. I mean, that's what happens when you start getting sensitive. Yeah. Right. You know, like, you know, over those lockdowns and all that, you know, like some of the local chatter was pretty damn intense, I have to say.
Wasn't it?
Just, you know, and then you've got all, like, you know, then you've got disembodied spirits, you've got spirit trapped between worlds, you've got nature spirits, and you've got visiting spirits, and you've got interdimensionals, you've got this huge taxonomy of like all of these things, all like just like, and if you were sensitive, you've basically got, oh, hey, look, he can pick up on stuff, let's go and see him. They're not all bad, and they're not all good. Some of them are different, some of them are tricksters, and some of them are just, you know, are just bored and they want expression in the physical. You see, we are on the physical, they are not, right? They want expression on the physical, and it's very hard for them to get expression on the physical, but they can work through us. And so we've got to be mindful of that type of thing too, right? But as far as the intuition and the intellect, sorry, I think it was Jake was asking the question.
Yeah.
So you get this intellectual process, it trains the bodies, opens the pipes up, and then suddenly that momentum carries you over into the intuition, and suddenly you're operating, you're able to access a clearer form of intuition, and then it comes back the other way into the middle, and then you have this divine marriage between the intellect and the intuition. But as far as directly answering your question goes, Jake, we do concentration exercises so that it's easy for us to perceive naturally occurring things because they are very subtle. So the intuition does play in, because the better we get at training ourselves to these three poles, if you say, to detect these things or grasp them, there's a naturalness and an ease that develops in seizing and grasping the other letters. So we work with the four mother letters, which are fire, air, earth, and water. And then once we get those down, that basically kind of cracks the door open for what we would call the sub-elements. So, you know, letter M is for the water element, which is like a bluey green color. And that opens the door for the other water element letters like G and CH and, you know, N and these types of things. So, yeah, as far as intuitive and intellectual goes, chances are you'll perceive them and see them. Like I've been seeing them for years and I didn't realize it. I remember getting on a table at my friend's place, my Reiki sister, and she gave me a session, and this letter E pops up. And then the most popular color that my clients would see would be this dark violet. And some people would say, oh, that's that's this chakra here. And it's like going, well, maybe. I mean, but then once I started studying Kabbalah and that and seeing all these different colors that fall outside of the rainbow spectrum, it's like, well, this actually kind of lines up a bit cleaner, actually. And letter E turns out to be the letter of the Akasha, or the still point. And that's the dark violet. And you get that from being very, 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 very still. And you're quietening down. So the more you can concentrate, the better it is. So anyway, sorry, I do wander off, but hopefully that answers your question, Jake.
I love it. And you just it links so many things for me when you and I have a chat. So back in college, when we were studying Greg Braden's work, so long ago, it was on VHS. My gorgeous teacher, Karen, would bring in Greg Braden, Dan Winter, and put it on the old VCR player, and we'd watch it on the little TV there. But I remember very, very clearly, we watched a video on fractals, and there was one that was a toroidal field, and it had all of the different Hebrew letters, and it was showing how they all kind of like fall and roll into each other. And it just took your mind on this almost kaleidoscope type adventure where you fall into the letters and you kind of feel your spirit enmeshed or immersed within the letters, or at least that's what it felt like for me. So I don't know if that video is still available. I might have to ask Karen what one that was, but yeah, that was a transformative experience.
So there's a chap by the name of Stan Tenen from the meru.org. That's his website. And he has so much information on, basically he's a mathematician. I believe he's a practicer, or he's a Jewish chap, a rabbi of some sort. I think he's passed now, fortunately, but he has a lot of information similar to that. He's actually got hand gestures based on a geometrical shape that something fits in the palm of your hand, and you can basically put your hand on this shape, which looks like a torus out of an apple. And basically you can make all of the Hebrew letters by putting them in different gestures and these types of things. And they almost look like shadows. Like if you put your hands against the wall, they look like shadow emanations or expressions of the letters. Yeah, I mean, that's pretty much it. Is like, the Hebrew Kabbalah, they're sort of the technology that underlies all that is actually quite universal. So we see that pretty much all traditions use the elements. They all have a letter system. They all have some form of, like Japanese people have kotodama, which sounds a little bit similar to Kabbalah, but that's a chanted form of what they call the spirit of the word. And speaking or uttering something Kabbalistically is not the same as saying dog. It would be d or g. And there would be a color for each letter and a sound and a sensation. And then you learn how to speak Kabbalistically or utter it. And that's what invokes the power underlying it. We're just kind of saying words nowadays as a form of communication. But yeah, I mean, my gosh, it's a big thing to explore because each culture tends to have its own kind of Kabbalah, if you will, or spoken or three-part concentration. I'm finding this while I'm in my Reiki studies because they use Kotodama in Reiki, which basically is like a form of Japanese Kabbalah, which nobody talks about or knows about. I just find it because I'm looking, I guess. So, yeah.
And that's fascinating. I hadn't heard about the Japanese one before, but it does make me think how lazy we are, especially as Australians, for pronouncing vowels and just stringing our words together as one sentence. I notice sometimes even when I'm doing a voice note to text, and
Yes.
the Australian voice, I don't even realize it till I see the words like, oh yeah, I'm going to do this. And then I look at the word and in my head, I'm thinking I'm saying the word going to do this. And I realize the Australian version comes out. So, we have to be mindful of the words that we're putting out, the sounds, the energy, intention. And I saw Lorianne's beautiful comment about the light language. And it's interesting because for me, that was another thing that I was born with, this connection and this knowing of bringing through light language. And it says in the Keys of Enoch, and I think it says this quote in the Bible. Don't quote me on it because I haven't fully read it, but someone did reference and tell me this. And I had a look and I did find it. But they talk about that there'll be those that speak a divine language that comes from, I think it talks about the angelic realms, and they will go on to activate and initiate others to speak this as well. But it talks about these people being connected to source. But random off topic, I've got my tuning forks here, and
Cool.
I was recently using them in the aura course because we were activating each of the chakras with the sounds and just letting that energy vibrate and really resonate, clean it out. And I've just written down each of the sounds that's on here, the ones that they're connected with. So you see here, we've got the crown going all the way to the root, other way around, but you get what I mean. But each of them has a certain tone, a note. But what I see is, the somatic picture when we're playing these as well. And if we look into the chakras being those beautiful ethereal nerve plexuses that join into the physical, I think everything we're talking about today is about making the non-physical physical, or the interconnected nature of that substance or that plasma, that spidery web-like substance that you were talking about before. So it's like, okay, we're starting to build a bank of knowledge. What is it that we can do with this bank of knowledge? What is it that, as you were saying before, it's the creator wants us to create? What's your take on that? And where do you feel to steer this amazing ship?
So what kind, if you look at what opportunities we have on this earth plane, like this place can have the harmony destabilized and disrupted just like that. We could get some new mandate or some sort of new thing come out, which just creates a whole bunch of disharmony. So, and which serves a purpose too, the yin and the yang both belong to the same whole. So, as far as the opportunities go, I heard a great quote, and that was, don't fight the dark, fight for the light, or work for the light. Right. And so, I think things like, as far as how we can utilize these natural forces, or we step into the workshop of God, as some would say, and we seek to become more potent in our walk. Okay, we're seeking how to become more and more refined as well. So there's an empowerment and a refinement. What can we do with all this? Well, we can talk about it, which is great, but it's like me talking about a paintbrush and going, well, look at this paintbrush. I've got the best paintbrush. I spent all this time making this paintbrush. It's got the best bristles and that. It's like, bro, you're gonna make a painting with it? We're gonna do something with it? No, I'm just enjoying talking about my paintbrush. It's like, okay, these are tools, right? And so obviously things like creating more harmony in the world is always good. We do that as healers and as meditation instructors, and that as well. We're wanting to emanate more harmony, because that's a good bed for beautiful things to arise. Now, as far as creativity goes in the form of maybe art or something that we're trying to bring in for whatever reason, whether it's a song or a meal or a type of new system for organizing things. Some people want to plow the earth with their hands, right? That's all there for you, right? We can use it for increasing efficiency and these types of things. But I think, as we can develop our internal capabilities, we can put ourselves on the leading edge of creative opportunity. And that is by being able to focus and being able to block out noise so that the clearer, cleaner signals, because those subtle signals are the ones that we're after, are the ones that that's the sweet spot. There's lots of environmental noise when you're in a main center or something like this, right? And then you've got all the physical environmental things. Liberating yourself from those things, and there's many methods for doing this, allows you to tune into that clean signal, which is like, oh man, I want to be a pastry chef, or I want to be I want to be a carpenter or something like this. And then you just find a mode of expression that really floats your boat, and you just start exploring it, and you're playing with the tools. And the next thing, you've made a pencil holder for mum, or you've made a beautiful sculpture or something that nobody likes, but you think it's the best thing ever. And you're bringing joy and delight into the world. And I think just finding ways to make people smile is a good one. I like seeing people smile. I used to love that as a guitar teacher, seeing the kids go through this transformative thing, I think that's what we're doing now is we can just help people just find the best parts of themselves. And, and through that, we can find out more about our own selves as well.
Yeah. And I think you put that so poetically, and it's interesting because this has been a lot of my reflection coming back from the meditation retreat in, I guess, coming from being where you're meditating for, about 5 hours a day, and then you get on a plane for over 24 hours on and off, 4 different airports, then you come home and you're like, right, you're planted back in your house in 3D reality. And it was so funny because everything looked different. But I think it was more that my consciousness was different, or there was a shift, as well as my partner had painted the bathroom, and it took me a while to work out. It went from blue to white. I was not fully present back in my body just yet. But what I've been noticing is how, I guess, on a 3D level, the annoyance of going to shopping centers and things like that can be. And, it's been a few experiences where I've had to go and just sort of be out. And I'm like, there's just so much over chatter or nonsense. No one's really being clear and direct with the channel. And I'm like, okay, I know this is being reflected back to me in that I need to meditate more. I need to and it's not a real annoyance. It's just there's a lot of just pointlessness and senselessness, which that's part of the 3D trap. That's part of the 3D world. But I think what you're saying too is, when you find that one thing that you want, and just from hearing about the experiences of people at this retreat and seeing people get up out of wheelchairs, thyroids grow back, all sorts of amazing stories, autism reversals, all kinds of incredible things. It's when they go out super clear, super quiet, and connected to that void space and to source. And they just stream that in as their dominant frequency and dominant form, that new version of self. And I think that's what's been almost an assault to the senses, is there's so many people walking around. And it's just, if you imagine strings everywhere, unorganized chaos, and it becomes very, very apparent. Does that make sense?
Yep, no, totally. And, people are, what is it, 40 to 60 to 80,000 thoughts a day. and those thoughts are just hitting them, and then they have a reaction, or we do, whatever, people have reaction to the thing, and then they carry out a behavior, and there's no, wait a minute, it's only a thought, I don't have to do anything with it. But, especially at this time of year where you're like, oh my gosh, there's Christmas shopping, there's, getting things ready for family, there's school's finishing, all these types of things. And you're trying to navigate all this. It's like, man, I tell you what, you sit down, you write a list, and then you just get real peaceful, and then you just go, and you go out into the world, right? And there's all these people who are all frazzled, and it was funny. Somebody put one up the other day. Thanksgiving, the day after Thanksgiving, when people are sitting around being grateful and all that, and then the next day they got the Black Friday sale where they're all jumping over the top of each other to get the sales. It's almost like
it's the war again, I guess.
Oh man.
The battle between the tribes and things. It's like reliving it every year. And I heard that a lot of people with Thanksgiving that, there is still energies or enemies and arguments and things like that that it just organically brings up for some reason, brings up the positive and the negative. I just realized we've just hit the hour. I would love to have you back on again, if you don't mind coming back. I know our audience absolutely loves you here. Is there anything that you want to leave our beautiful audience with?
Well, what I'll say to everyone is that, if you enjoy like peacefulness and harmony and stillness and all these types of things, it's valuable to know that those things can also sort of wear away a little bit at your willpower. And so it's important to stay active. And what you'll find is that as the pendulum swings between activity and stillness, you'll find that at each end of the swing, those things will become far more treasured and beautiful and enjoyable. And so, coming from someone, because I spent a long time in basically in isolation and in a metropolitan area at that, and the stillness can help you bridge into those worlds where you can get that good knowledge and that good wisdom, and then you can bring it back in and put it into action. Remember, guys, we're here for action. Now, you can do whatever you'd like to with your life. This is your life. Remember that. You don't have to be driven by what you perceive from past lives and things like that. They had their turn, Now it's time for your turn. What are you going to do with what you got? And if you look at it, you've got so many. One thing, the commodity here is that we've got so many years on the clock before, we don't. And life expectancy may grow. It likely will. People, I'm 46. I tell you what, 46-year-olds looked a lot older back when I was a young fellow, I got to say.
Yeah. That's for sure.
So look after your body, look after your mind, and look after, just be kind to yourself. I'll just say that, and take care about what you put in, read the labels. And I tell you what, things will naturally start to sort of sort themselves out. Even during challenging situations, just treat that as like heavy lifting. And just do your best to remain calm and peaceful as best you can, But hey, sometimes you're being provoked to activate your fire element. Sometimes you've got to get a little bit of the righteous indignation out and speak your mind. But see if you can do that calmly and cleanly. Because I tell you what, there's a lot of powder keg hairpin triggers out there. People have got big buttons just waiting to be pressed, and you can pick your battles when it comes to that. You don't need to unnecessarily get yourself involved in something that made you go, So
I think that's good advice, especially with the Mercury retrograde and the holiday season that we're about to step into. And for me, it's maybe just stay away from the shops for a little bit more if I don't have to go there. And, it's just a reminder of how good you feel, I think, when you are in meditation and you are working with those higher states. Speaking of that, I just had to share as well. I popped up some of your things in the background, but I just want to remind, that's okay. Let me also pop that back up. Sorry, I'm just trying to hide a comment so that I can see. We do have the courses that are available online. We are having amazing results with the Aura course. I'm so proud of my beautiful, beautiful soul tribe, seeing auras and colors and activating their third eye and things. But we do have the readings available. So please use all caps Jupiter to save 10% on your reading. And please hit that little notification button so that you don't miss another show, especially with having Phil coming back on. And please subscribe to Phil's YouTube channel as well. And he does have Reiki and meditation and tarot readings available. So please reach out to him. And he is on social media, but you'll find him over his Substack, which we've shared several times throughout the show. Thank you so much, Phil. And thank you to our gorgeous audience for participating and joining in tonight. We've had so much fun with you guys. I can't believe how fast that hour has gone.
Whew. Life goes past pretty fast, guys. Thank you so much for having me, and thank you to our wonderful audience too.
Thanks, Phil. I'm sending big, big hugs. Bye, everyone.